Hello, YouTube. Hello to you, my fellow metalheads. This is Duke Krishnak reporting in for another video. I was initially planning on doing a singular video on about 10 of my favorite black metal bands, but I was really thinking about it and writing down a list. It was really hard to keep it to 10. So what I did to help me with that is I've decided to do two different videos. This first one is going to be about my personal favorite of the earlier black metal bands, and then the other video that I'm going to do after this is going to be focusing on more modern bands. Bands that have formed in like the 2000s or late 90s, things like that. Or even like a year ago. But anyway, so first band I'm going to be talking about is Bathory. The reason I say band is because, like, a decent chunk of his career was simply just Quorthon in the band as the sole member. And yes, there were other members in the first handful of albums. Well, actually, the majority of his albums. But really, Quorthon was the driving force behind all of it, and he was the consistent member and lyrical and, like, instrumental, everything. He was like the sole leader, and he pushed forth the band, and no one really associates Bathory as being a band anymore, because he didn't really do much live shows or anything that I'm aware of when he was like first starting out. So people just generally count Bathory as a solo project, even though that's only like 50% truth. But anyway, let's talk about the actual music, shall we? So, Bathory is probably the earliest black metal band there is. They were black metal before. I sound like a fucking hipster. They were black metal before black metal was black metal. Okay, so when he and his band were releasing music, their genre did not exist. Okay? They didn't know what to consider themselves musically. Now, in their first couple of albums, there's obviously a bit more of thrash influence in there, but it's definitely not a thrash metal band. I cannot stress you enough. It's not thrash. But they had to come from somewhere, right? Death metal wasn't around then. Black metal wasn't around then. And they just were like, scream metal, just out of goddamn nowhere. And that's why Bathory, like, holds a place in my heart and should hold a place in anyone who's into extreme metal's heart, whether they listen to black metal, death metal, or both, or whatever. You should know Bathory. You should know their history. Fucking Bathory. And on top of that, not only did they basically help pioneer black metal, but what is Viking metal? I'm going to do a video on why I don't think that's a real genre, but that's besides the point. They really helped inspire that sort of movement. It took a while to really manifest, but I think without them, a lot of the lyrical content in black metal was derived from their lyrical content. They were like jokingly like over the top Satanist, but then they were like, just kidding, we're Vikings. That's just because he just wanted to play whatever he wanted to do. And he liked picking topics and from a like fantasy point of view and delving into that. It's no different than playing D&D or a computer game or something. That's just he realized that. And I think that's where some black metal bands kind of fall short, is they take some of that stuff a little too seriously. That's just my opinion. Sarcophago. They are a Brazilian black metal band, like black, death, and thrash kind of mixed together. They also came out super late, I believe, like super late, super early, like late 80s. So that's probably where my mind was thinking of that. I don't know the exact year. Maybe 87, something like that. But anyway, Sarcophago to me is an amazing band. Yeah, they don't know exactly like where they are in the scheme of things, but that's cool because they themselves are Sarcophago, and that's all that really matters. Um, it's a very interesting sound because even if you aren't super into thrash or you aren't super into death metal, aren't super into black metal, or whatever, you could still appreciate Sarcophago. So I highly recommend you check them out if you have not already. INRI would probably be the first album I would recommend that you listen to. That's their most well known album. I think a lot of the sort of imagery, the corpse paint, and the like nails sticking out of the wristband and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of that came from Sarcophago. And I wouldn't say that they're like the only early band out there, but it was interesting that they kind of created that sort of sense of fashion, so to speak. And they were from Brazil and didn't really communicate with any of these other people and have any way, shape of, way to know that this was gonna develop something in fucking like Norway, of all places. It's just kind of interesting. Emperor, I could rant about Emperor for a while. This band right here, yeah, from their EP or whatever. Yeah, they were the first black metal band that I had ever listened to. I didn't even know if they were black metal when I had listened to them. A friend of mine had them on the background. Uh, but yeah, Emperor's great because I think without them, the sort of more melodic bands wouldn't have developed into what they did. They also, kind of helped out prog a little bit, progressive, because I don't want to say they were super important in inventing prog or anything. I'm not trying to say that at all. What I'm trying to say is that sort of combining other types of music into black metal. They helped pioneer what is now melodic black metal. They put some orchestral elements into their early music. Just all sorts of miscellaneous things like that they really helped expand what black metal means and didn't just say it has to sound like this. They helped okay, well, we still do sound like that, but we got a little something here on the side, and that's why I really give props for Emperor and help expanding the scene. Satyricon, some of the same stuff I'll say about Emperor, I'll say with Satyricon, but not exactly. I think for me, what really drives me to them in particular is the fact that their more later stuff is almost like black rock and roll or black rock roll, whatever black roll you want to call it. And I think that's really cool because I do like some of that stuff, and it's not like the most popular of black metal subgenres out there, but I think it's kind of cool. Kind of unique sound, and plus, even their stuff that wasn't like black and roll, like Dark Medieval Times is a classic, and that is definitely not black and roll at all, at all. Very cool sound in that, and they had some medievalish sounding folk music just kind of thrown in bits and pieces of it, and really created a really cool environment. So yeah, Satyricon. Nocturnal Mortem. I'm putting them in early, even though they're not like pioneering in any way. They're not one of the early Norwegian or Swedish bands or anything. They're actually Ukrainian. But Lunar Poetry is just an amazing goddamn fucking album that if you like black metal or you're trying to get into it, I really recommend you go listen to that album right after you finish watching this video. But yeah, crazy shit. Kind of folk sounding. A lot of like flute and violin and keyboard and all sorts of crazy stuff. So they have a really unique sound, and it's really fun. If you like a little bit of folk in your music too, I check them out too. So Nocturnal Mortem. I'm not a huge fan of their later music, their more modern music, but I mean it's not bad. It's just didn't blow me away like fucking Lunar Poetry in that kind of general area or era, I should say. Darkthrone. I can't not talk about Darkthrone. Everybody fucking knows who Darkthrone is if you like black metal. So I'm not gonna get into them in super detail like I have in some of the other bands, but I really like them and their early stuff. And I'm so glad that they're getting back into black metal again, and like with their newest album. And their punk stuff is good. Their crust punk is good. If you really like crust punk, I'd really recommend checking them out too if you are a punk fan, because a lot of their albums, or probably even the majority of their albums, are actually punk music. Burzum or Burzum. I mean, my YouTube channel is called Duke Grishnak. Obviously, I like Burzum because that was Varg Vikernes' pseudonym when he was writing Burzum, as he would refer to himself as Count Grishnak in like the albums with the picture of him, and it was like, this is Count Grishnak, I really like him because of the fact that I'm a big fan of atmospheric black metal and some depressive suicidal black metal. So I think Burzum played an integral role in that, and I think that's why, you look at these handful of bands that all the black metal people know, like, the early music. And I think Burzum, the reason that I really like Varg's work is because of the fact that, like I said, without him, things like atmospheric black metal and depressive suicidal black metal and stuff like that might not have came around, or at least would have taken longer. I think he was really influential in those sounds, as well as just early classical generico black metal. So yeah, all of his shit's solid. So definitely check out Burzum if you haven't already for some reason. And yeah, that's going to conclude my video on the bands in the early black metal scene that I particularly enjoy the most. There's obviously a handful that I left out. It does not mean I do not like them. It just means that if I'm trying to condense this into a list between 5 to 10, these are just the first ones that came to mind. Doesn't mean I don't like Immortal or something, or rather. It just means that those are the ones that particularly came to my mind and that I wanted to talk about in this video. So that's going to be it. If you like the content, go ahead, hit the like button, put a comment down there, subscribe, do whatever you feel like. I would really, really, really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video about more modern black metal.